I went through this point in my career that I was so frustrated and defeated to the point where I wanted to quit driving monster trucks. And the reason is because anytime I would jump the truck any more than 20, 25 feet in the air, the shocks would rebound so abruptly and violently that it would rebound the truck over onto the roof. And there was one particular crash that it felt like I had gone through about 100 of these crashes where it wasn't even an aggressive jump. It was just a basic kind of bigger than normal jump and bigger than normal air that I got. And it rebounded so hard, it went over on my roll cage. And in case you're wondering, a crash onto the roll cage, it really does hurt, okay? There's no suspension on that side of the truck. And I laid upside down after this particular crash, and I was so defeated. And I just said to myself, I want to quit. I was so exhausted and physically hurt and tired of getting that kind of my bell rung and just having those types of abrupt landings. And I just said, I don't know how many more of these I can put myself through. I actually got out of the truck after we got back to the pit area, and I went up to my crew chief and I said, look, I don't have any new information or new ideas to give you. I do not know what else to do to get this 12,000-pound truck to land in a way that does not immediately throw me into a crash. And I just kind of threw my hands up, totally defeated, and said, look, maybe today should be my last day driving a monster truck. For that 2-year span of time where I just wanted to quit, I felt totally defeated. There were so many people around me when I look back that, man, if it weren't for their encouragement, if it weren't for them to come up behind me to say, Bryce, you're gonna figure this out. You're a great driver. You just can't quit. I probably would have quit. Because I found myself in one of those dips, one of those moments where after you have so much optimism of starting something new, and I was excited about this career in monster trucks, and then I started going into that phase of just, I crashed every time I felt like I hit the throttle. That pessimism set in. At the end of that pessimism is the dip. And that's where most dreams and goals and visions and things that we try to accomplish, that's where most of those things go to die. And so I was stuck in one of those dips and I did not know how to get out of it. Thankfully, one of the moments that I was sat there with my crew chief, I told him, I said, you know, at the end of the day, the momentum that this truck is generating, it's rebounding up. That's still momentum. How can I get the truck to rebound forward or to accelerate forward? The momentum goes forward in front of the truck instead of up in the air. And so we started actually studying motocross. We started looking at dirt bikes. I started looking at a couple other drivers that always seem to get big air, and I realized the physics of these trucks, each tire weighing 600 pounds. If I can increase the tire speed while the truck is in the air, when that truck actually lands, if that tire speed matches the quote-unquote ground speed of the truck, even though we're flying through the air, but that ground speed of the truck coupled with the tire speed, if we can match those two speeds, the truck will bounce forward instead of going up. And so I started to experiment with that. Well, in doing that, and it wasn't perfect at first, but we did have some encouraging results right away. All of a sudden, my crew chief came in there and he said, well, if the truck's going to rebound forward better, then I can actually make a couple of these adjustments in the shocks and enable it to absorb it differently. Instead of trying to fight the truck bouncing up, we're trying to allow it to bounce forward. Then if we can use that suspension in a different way, we unlocked the secret code or that formula that we'd been looking for, and everything started to change, and we started to slowly climb outside of that dip. So here's what's cool. If you don't die in this dip and your goals don't finally get killed in that dip, you're able to climb out of it and go into informed optimism, where now you know what you did not know earlier, and you're able to go out there and perform at a level that you never knew you were capable of. And so we did that with the truck. All of a sudden, we kind of cracked the code at getting this big air and the truck not rebounding so severely and ending up in a crash. And so my confidence skyrocketed. And we were in Atlanta at the Atlanta Motor Speedway back in 2024. And all of a sudden, there was a great looking jump. I remember looking at it right before the event started and thinking to myself, this thing has the perfect height. It's cut perfectly. And there's a ton of run-up space and room that I can get a lot of ground speed that I can hit that really fast with. And so I went out there for my freestyle run. I hit the perfect backflip. The run was going great, and I just felt all of the excitement and that adrenaline. And so I turned the truck, got it whipped around, and I was lined up perfectly for that big jump. And I hit the throttle, gave it 100%, and I never lifted. We jumped that truck about 50 feet in the air. We kind of unofficially, but officially set the biggest jump record in the entire sport of Monster Jam, where it was without a doubt that everyone said that's the biggest jump we've ever seen. And the reason is because our confidence was high. We made it through the dip where we had informed optimism, which allowed us to go out there and keep pushing the limits leading up to that moment. And we used all of our failures over the previous 2 to 3 years, and then finally those successes, to know that if we threw that truck 50 feet in the air, it was going to actually not only come down and land, but it was going to land the right way. And we were able to get that forward momentum coming out of that landing with that truck, which was so phenomenal. Now, I can tell you this, whenever that truck was 50 feet in the air, I remember thinking just how small everybody in the stands looked. It was the most surreal feeling ever. I also remember looking down past my feet, trying to pick a landing spot. And as I was approaching that, and the truck finally nosed down and it was coming down back to earth because gravity is undefeated, my first thought was just tire speed, tire speed, tire speed. I was giving it a lot of throttle to get that tire speed to match my ground speed, because that's the lesson that I had learned the hard way for 2 straight years. And thankfully, when that truck landed, boom, it pulled itself out. And man, we celebrated so hard that night together as a team and as an organization. But it taught me such a valuable lesson. If I'm going to go through something tough, I want to get the lesson from it. It taught me to not waste the pain. If you're going to go through something hard and painful, get the lesson from it and then go and apply it and start winning again. And that jump is exactly the moment that taught me that the best. Here's what I would tell you as a leader, because I know you've been through these kinds of dips in your career and in your life. Maybe you just lost a major client. You've been passed over for some promotion at some point in your career, because we all have. Maybe you just went through a big product launch fail. I can tell you one thing, you've been through one of these dips where you started off so excited and you had that uninformed optimism, meaning you didn't know what you don't know, right? But you were excited. And then you hit that pessimism because you started to hit some roadblocks and some speed bumps. And here's what I want you to understand. When that pessimism sets in, you have to understand that that dip is coming. That dip is coming, and you want to spend as little time as possible inside of that dip. And so what I had to learn to do was to speed up my failure rate so that I could start getting to the successes sooner, because on the other side of that dip is informed optimism, meaning you learned the lessons that you needed to learn in order to be successful. And now all of a sudden you're going to launch off of that informed optimism and that energy that you're going to get, that adrenaline shot, and it's going to get you to that achievement. It's so interesting because people, a lot of times, they wake up and go into work, and on Monday morning is where the effects of being in that dip hurt the worst. Because you look at your desk and you look at your emails and all of your projects, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through that this week. I want that mindset shift to just make one small change first thing every Monday morning. Instead of saying, hey, what can I just get a couple quick wins under my belt here this morning? I want you to think about, what can I fail at this morning? What is one thing, by giving it my best effort, I can figure out a way that it's not going to work? And a great way to do that is actually that inverted thinking that some billionaire investors are so good at, where they're saying, what if you switch the project that you have in your mind and on your desk right now on that whiteboard in your office, and you said, okay, let's look at this differently. Instead of us trying to strategize how we're going to make this successful, what if we all met and said, if we wanted to guarantee that this project fails, how would we do that? How could we make sure that this product launch fails? How could we make sure that our major clients, our biggest, most important client, leaves us? And you come up with those lists of things to ensure that they would fail, and you just simply do the opposite. If you start to think in that way on a Monday morning, you are able to unlock a level of creativity that you've never seen before. And I've seen this work inside of a real organization, specifically inside of a franchise organization, that they were so stuck in trying to achieve what they were trying to achieve. We did this inverted thinking, a scenario, an example, an exercise, and they started to understand, look, if we wanted to understand and make sure that this failed, we would do X, Y, and Z. And then they came up with a game plan to just simply do the opposite of X, Y, and Z. And all of a sudden it unlocked not only creativity, but brand new ideas that they had been stuck on for the last 2 months. That's the type of thing that people that get stuck in dips never have the chance to go and do and achieve, because they let their dreams and their careers die as soon as that pessimism sets in. They panic, they freak out, and they don't make it through it. Don't be like that. Understand that pessimism should be a trigger to work faster, to fail faster. And when you are stuck beyond stuck, invert that thinking on a Monday morning, come up with those guarantees to make it fail, and then simply strategize around the exact opposite of those tactics and watch some things start to really get unlocked, and you'll find that next gear.